Okay, I think that's fine. Okay. Okay, yeah, how were the tech talks on Monday? Did you like them?
Yes.
Were they interesting?
Yeah.
Kind of, yes?
Yeah.
Hopefully you liked that. I thought Margaret's talk was really interesting
Yeah.
because she works in YouTube. And so it's so much different than like the world that I'm in or like other people are in.
That was the most interesting.
But it's really cool because she like talked about like the evolution of how things have changed over time, which is really crazy. Okay, so today I'm actually going to do a tech talk. I tried to put it together this morning, but I was kind of like hearing about the election and everything. So hopefully everything is fine, but we'll figure it out. Okay, so I really want to talk about my career journey in tech so far and how I've ended up where I am and all the lessons I kind of learned along the way. So I graduated from UC Berkeley, graduated in 2017, and I did a double major in applied math and CS. Oh my gosh. Okay, excuse me. So I didn't know that I wanted to do computer science at first. I knew I wanted to do math, but it was all very theoretical. I was like, this is kind of silly. So let me also try to do computer science. So if you look at this image, I took my Intro to CS class in Python and I got a B+. Okay? So looking at the other grades that I've gotten, my final GPA was like a 3.0 at best maybe. And the other grades I got were kind of bad, right? I didn't do that well in school. But what I'm trying to say is grades really don't matter all that much. And I know in some regards they do, like if you go to med school or if you go apply to grad school or do all these things, maybe your grades do matter. But for me specifically, like all I did was try my best. I tried to get the best grade I could, but this was the best I could have done. And it was average, right? But it's totally fine. So,
You did biology?
huh? Yeah, a B is fine,
and it was
right?
it
A
was-
C is fine.
It was UC.
Yeah, Berkeley, maybe the culture's a bit different, grade inflation, blah, blah, whatever. But ultimately, like, someone's gonna see the grades and they're gonna say, okay, Jessica got a B and a C, and that's maybe okay in their brain. It's all how you perceive those letters, right? So then not after college yet. So during college, I interned at a few places, but the first year of school, during my summer, I took Intro to CS, and I got B+, which was fine. It was a hard class. And then the second year, so my sophomore year that summer, I worked on a project building like data visualizations, and you can literally see my personal website from 10 years ago when I was doing all this stuff with like D3.js, if you've heard of that. And I was just working with some random person on campus. I don't remember who they were specifically or what they were working on or what department they were in or whatever, but I was just trying to get any experience I could, right? Doing anything. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun, building data visualizations. I actually should probably like show you.
Oh,
Yeah, okay, so this is what it looks like.
10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago, literally. Like my resume is from 10 years ago too, the one that's linked here. Very simple, right? A lot of you all probably are much more better, setting yourself up better than I did when I was your age. So yeah, you can take a look. I have never killed this website, but yeah. So then after my junior year, that summer, I was able to get an internship and I was a data science intern at Workday. I worked so hard. I was like, this is so great. And I didn't end up getting a return offer.
No.
And from all of the peers that I'd had, they had all said this was really common, right? If you just work hard, if you just do your job, it's not hard to get a return offer. So everyone I knew got a return offer except for me, and I really felt like I had failed because I really thought I worked hard. But that's okay. So my first job, this was like maybe fall semester, October, November, I was applying for jobs to start after I graduated in the spring. So I applied to so many places, like so many places. And I didn't get that many interviews. I only got one offer, and once I got it, I was like, okay, I'm done. I was really happy with it. I really liked who I talked to, and I think I'm a very like vibe person, feelings person. If I like talking to you, then I feel like I'll like working with you. In general, I think I'm just like that, which is good and bad. But yeah, I only got one offer. I was happy with it, so I started. So spring 2017, that's when I started to work here. The company is called Lob. So it was a startup. If you know anything about these financial terms, it was in a Series C funding stage, meaning that it was growing, and they would always talk about like runway, which is how much money you have left to be able to like survive as a company, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were at this stage, it was still growing, it was doing well. When I joined the company, it was around 10 engineers, so I was like engineer number 9 or number 10. And then that grew to 30 in about the 2 years that I was there. So it started off with like everyone working on their own thing. And then eventually we divided into engineering teams. So instead of having everyone just doing random projects working together as one team, it became like 4 teams. So there was like a platform team, an infrastructure team, a like operations team. I forget what the last one was. And then I was on the platform team, like building UIs. And the company eventually grew to like 100 people in the span of 2 years that I was there. Maybe it was a little more. But yeah, it was growing, it was doing well. And my experience there was I just wanted to try everything. I wanted to see what I was good at, see what I was bad at, try a bunch of different things just to really figure out what I liked and didn't like. So I recommend you all kind of do the same thing as you start off in your early experiences in your career. And I worked with APIs for the first time. I worked with MongoDB, did a lot of SQL writing. So this was my first time doing all of this. And I really liked Angular. So I felt like I really wanted to be a front-end engineer and work with front-end frameworks such as like Angular and React and all the other ones that I can't think of. But I also learned what it was like to work at a real company that had to deploy code. So I learned about staging, production environments, continuous development, continuous testing, stuff we talked about before, and yeah, really how code gets pushed from our machines in this world of working in industry to something live that people could see. Yes, yo, what's up?
Please, what did you mean when you said you learned how to work in a company that you have to deploy code?
Yeah, so when you work on projects, you just submit your project, right? And then that's it. But when you actually have instances of different things running and you have a production environment, staging environment, you're actually like pushing things live to consumers and products to people for them to use.
Like your code is getting like
it's being used. Yeah, you're shipping your code, you're pushing your code. People are actually using it, right? Whereas your projects, you just submit them and that's it. So this was the first time in a really big environment I felt like I was like learning how to deploy code and push this code. Okay, so 1 year into this job, I actually got put on a PIP. If you've never heard that before, I'm sure none of you really heard this before. It's not PIP the package manager. Yeah, it's PIP standing for Performance Improvement Plan. So what does this really mean? It just means that my current performance at that company wasn't meeting my employer's expectations, my manager's expectations, whoever hired me. I just wasn't technically proficient enough, I wasn't contributing enough. And you were given a set period of time, whether that's like a few weeks or a few months, to really demonstrate that you've improved. So basically, if you were unable to meet these requirements or show that you've improved significantly, then you would be dismissed or terminated from your position. Basically, I was going to get fired from the company if I didn't do better. Right? Which happens, right? And I was saying yesterday during like the interview prep session, the people that you hire are the most expensive asset, right? They're investing in you. If they choose to hire you, they're investing in you to then learn and onboard and grow and then eventually provide some benefit, or service or something for the company, right? That's what jobs are in a, I guess, like explicit way to say it. But yeah, so what I learned from this is that asking questions is a skill. So when you craft your questions, especially if they're like technical ones, you really want to demonstrate that you are doing some problem solving or you've done some work beforehand versus just going up to somebody on your team and being like, I'm stuck, can you help me, right? So I talked about this in one of the labs yesterday where if you are just like in your interview question, problem, technical assessment, you're like, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, can you help me? That's going to create such a negative perception because it just looks like you're just trying to get the answer. You don't know what you're doing. You're not even trying to think through it, right? But if you phrase a question being like, okay, I've tried this. I've thought through this. This is what I see. I don't think this is right. I want to try this. Is this in the right direction? right? That creates such a better, positive perception so that I know that you've tried things and that you've really tried to figure out and think through the problem that you're trying to solve. So I struggled with asking these questions in a good way. I was always just like, oh, I'm stuck on this problem. Here's the problem. Can you help me? Right? Versus being like, I've tried this. I've dug through this. I've searched through the docs. I've read the documentation. I've done all these things. And it's still not working. I don't know what to do. Right? So having that grit to be able to like debug what you're doing and try to figure it out on your own before you just immediately go ask someone for help. And I know you obviously, if you're like spending 3 hours on a problem, like go ask for help. Please go ask for help, right? But it's finding that balance of knowing you've tried enough and you've tried everything and then knowing when to ask for help. Does that make sense? So that was the lesson that I learned from being put on PIP. So I got off of PIP, which was good. And then 1 year later, I actually ended up getting fired. Yeah. So I don't really tell people this too often because obviously it creates a negative perception. If this is something you talk about, people are just going to associate you with being the person that got fired, right? And I do think it happens more often than you think, just people being let go at companies. But as a young person that just started to work in industry, right? Like I did not expect this at all. And I was so distraught by the fact that this had happened because I really felt like at that time in the company too, that I was doing a lot of good work and I was pushing myself. I was talking to all these people. I was working with all these people on really big projects. Even the project that I was working on at this time, I was like, wow, this is when I'm going to get promoted, if anything. I really thought that I was going to walk into a room, seeing my manager and like the HR people, that they were going to actually promote me and give me a higher title, right? But instead what happened was they told me that I was fired and I was being terminated. So really what does this mean is your employment is terminated. I was given personally a few weeks to really finalize my projects and then my last day was determined. But it really just depends on the company and who you're working with and what they want to do. All the discretion is up to whoever hired you, right? So really it kind of depends, but this is what happened with me. So yeah, while some terminated employees are asked to leave immediately, which is possible, and I've seen that happen before, I was kind of allowed to leave on my own terms because I still think they at least valued my, valued the work that I'd done a little bit. And I know a lot of them would say like, oh, you contributed so much to the culture here, blah, blah, blah. You're such a fun person to be around, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, they at least were trying to help me. So not that this really matters to you, but healthcare, health benefits, insurance, right? They were trying to help me by extending my insurance so I could at least be covered. All this stuff that eventually you'll learn about. Maybe this is I'm telling you too much for your like bright young eyes or whatever. Maybe I'm coming in like a jaded way and telling you these things, but this is my experience. Yeah, Zio.
You said you were the 9th engineer in the company. At the company.
I was what at
the 9th? Engineer.
Yes, I was the 9th engineer and then eventually grew to like 30. Yeah.
And then 200.
And that 30 engineers, and that's when I had left the company and then I didn't follow up with what happened after I left.
Oh.
Yeah, Moyo.
If you were the 9th engineer, were you like considered like part of the founding engineers?
No. So sometimes there's like a set of founding engineers. Sometimes it's just a CEO or a co-founder or whatever that is the founders. But in this company, there were no like founding engineers. But in the second company, there were. Okay, let me keep going. Or Megan, do you have a question? Are you sure? Okay. I just want to make sure I get through everything. So luckily, I was already looking to leave this company because I actually wasn't growing anymore. I also get bored pretty easily. So I felt like I was just doing the same thing over and over again, fixing this bug, doing this thing. And I was like, this is so boring. I've done this so many times. And I think 2 years is a good time to like kind of reevaluate where you are. So I was like, okay, I'm going to find another job anyway. So I already had one lined up. I just wanted to, at this point, reach my 2-year mark. Finish the project that I thought was really cool, that I was working on, and just finish it, and that's when I was going to leave, but it looks like my fate was already determined for me. So what I learned from this was that perception is really everything. And I know I talked about this a lot yesterday when I was talking to you all about interviews, right? So I truly think that women and other historically underrepresented groups in tech, especially in tech and STEM fields, don't have the privilege to fail. Right? If they make a mistake, if they do something wrong, if someone sees them doing something wrong, it's going to be a mark against them, right? And I think a lot of other people have that privilege to just fail and then they're like, okay, try better on the next one, or try harder on the next thing, and it's fine, right? But for some reason, there's this stereotype where women can't be engineers, or people that come from historically underrepresented groups, I can't do it, right? Because that representation doesn't exist right now. Maybe at Google it's a little bit better, but other companies, especially smaller companies, startups that don't have a lot of resources, they can't hire people of color, they don't actually like source, right? People that come from these different groups, like it's just you don't see that representation, therefore that stereotype and that perception exists, that women can't do it. So my takeaway is try to change my perspective and not think of this as like a failure, and know that I can do it, right? So I didn't want to give up on myself. I really still felt like I could do this job if I wanted to. And I wanted to try to think of failure more as like a learning than it was that my value was not good at this company or I didn't do good work, right? I think when you all make mistakes and when your programs don't work and your homework is failed and your grade's bad, right? You think that that's something wrong with you. But you should think of it as like you made a mistake, now you know for next time what to do better, right? So that's what I want you all to try to like remind yourself, because I think it's really hard to see that failure, feel that negative emotion, and then turn it into something positive, right? So try to remind yourself, even though I know obviously humans are human, they're going to feel bad. When I feel bad all the time, right? When I fail you all, I feel bad. If there's something that goes wrong, right, I feel bad. But try to move on from it and not make that tolerance of your distress like shorter, right? Don't like dwell on it, try to move on. And really, I think, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this before, grit is the best indicator of whether or not somebody is going to be successful. If you persevere, if you keep trying, then I know that you are going to be successful in whatever you choose to do. That's proven psychology, all these different talks, right? And I just want to remind you that I also really think that that's true. Okay, and then I also found out or figured out or learned that my work is not going to speak for itself, right? If I do good work, that's not enough. Nobody's going to like look at me and be like, oh, I noticed Jessica, right? And I know that she's doing good work. I know some people that are really perceptive are going to. People like me, I feel like I'm really tracking all of you and all my interactions with you just because I'm neurotic and I just think through all these things. But that's not the case for everyone, right? If you have a professor that's not me, that's not as perceptive, that's not really like they don't care so much about you all, right? They're not really going to recognize your work because you just do good work. You have to be your own champion and talk about it, right? And advocate for yourself. In order for me to recognize you do good work, you have to tell me, right? And a great example of this is when Daniel actually the other day was like, oh my gosh, I got all these interviews from Meta, from all these companies. And I was like, that is so awesome. I'm so proud of you. And the fact that he told me that, like, I remember that, right? And like when Manoj is telling me about FIS 5, right? And all the things that you all are doing, I'm like, wow, that is so amazing. And then that just creates a positive perception of me on you all, right? So that when I go to recommend students for stuff, or when I go to write referrals for students, like when Angela was here asking me, or other people have asked me too, I'm like, I'm happy to do it, right? Because I have such a good perception of you all, and I know you all work hard, and you care enough to have conversations with me and talk to me about it, and like show me your accomplishments. I think that's really awesome. So yeah, I think also when I left this role, I really felt like it was because I was perceived poorly at work, because I'm always trying to be fun. I'm always trying to have a good time. I'm always trying to make work fun, do all these fun things. And I think people take that to mean that I'm not as serious. I don't take things seriously, but I feel like there's just a time and a place for everything. But I really felt like I was just perceived poorly for who I was. One, because I was a woman, and two, because I think I'm more fun, less serious, I have less conviction when I talk. But I felt like it was a matter of then me proving myself, like proving that women could do it, proving that people that are more social or whatever can do it, right? But it's not about that. It's really just about changing your own narrative and creating a positive perception, right? So it took me a while to let go of this, like, I need to prove myself. I need to prove that women can do it, right? So yeah, I didn't want it to be so much that, but it took me a while to like get over being fired. Like, it really did take me a long time to feel like it was okay. Okay, so my next job, I wanted to work on something that I cared about. Because I was like, okay, Lob is working on print and mail APIs, if that means anything to you. And I was like, I don't care about that, right? So let me work on something that is something I care about, like urban development and planning cities to work for people better, right? And blah, blah, blah. We can talk about this more later, but yeah, I also really cared about having a woman that was my manager. So the fact that this company was something I cared about, the manager that was hiring me was a woman, and she was going to be the one that was guiding me and in charge of me. I really wanted to be there, and I really liked the conversations that I had when I was interviewing the company just as much as they were interviewing me. So Replica is a spin-off of Alphabet, Sidewalk Labs. So Sidewalk Labs, Google, they're all under Alphabet. And Sidewalk Labs, Replica is a spin-off of that. And Sidewalk Labs is now in Google, I think. That happened recently.
What's a spin-off?
A spin-off meaning that a group of engineers from there went off and did their own thing. But it was still kind of like related. So yeah, this was a smaller startup. They had just finished their seed funding, and then while I was there, it became like Series A funding, so that they had gotten more funding from investors. And there was around 5 engineers total, and then 9 people in the entire company at that time. So I was number 9 or 10. And yeah, I was really focused on becoming a front-end engineer. I really wanted to not do the same mistakes that I made the last time. So when I got fired, I felt like I didn't ask for feedback enough. I didn't realize that I was going to get fired. I didn't realize that my manager had this negative perception of me throughout the whole year, right, that I was working there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get feedback all the freaking time, right? So in this case, I was doing that, and I developed a bunch of other skills, right? I learned React. I got really good with Git and Subversion control, which we'll talk about later on in the semester. But guess what? 6 months into this job, I got put on PIP again.
Come on.
Yeah, again. Oh wait, no, that's fine.
That's no feeling this.
Okay, one sec. So I got put on PIP again. Right, what happened, I worked really hard. It was just a tiny startup, and I realized it just wasn't a good fit for me. So really, I want you all to take away this lesson. Find where you are actually valued, right? Like, I didn't take this experience personally because I was like, I worked really hard. I thought I did good work. But every company is so different. Even teams within different companies are so different. So just find the one that works for you. So I was like, whatever, move on.
Did you quit or sorry?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I left. Yeah, no, good question. I didn't end up getting fired again.
Okay.
I just decided to leave because I was like, this is unbearable. If I hate my day-to-day, I'm just gonna leave. So my next job, I was like, I'm gonna go to a big company where standards are put in place, best practices are put in place, and then I can like learn from really smart people. So I decided to go to Google. And I was so determined, did all the leak code, did all the interviewing, and I was like, I'm gonna get this job. So I joined the company at the height of the pandemic, and yeah, I've had a lot of great experiences since I joined like 4 or 5 years ago. There were a lot of ups and downs. So I got promoted for the first time, which is great. I think remote work is what really helped me because they can't see all the like fun that I'm having, right? While at work. They're just like, okay, when I see Jessica, she's serious, so therefore she's good, right? So maybe that's good for you. Maybe that's something you actually want to leverage is the flexibility of remote work and being really present and visible when you need to be, but also making sure you're visible because that's the challenge of remote work. Perception, right? If I don't see you, I don't think you're working.
Yeah.
So you have to manage your visibility then. So the trade-offs, right? But right after I got promoted, I actually got a really bad performance review. And again, I was like, I worked so hard. What the heck am I doing wrong? Right? And I learned that it was just, again, I failed to advocate for myself. So the last lesson is really try to advocate for yourself. If you don't talk about your work, you are not going to get the credit, right? So really try to share your accomplishments and everything, especially with the people that matter in terms of like who's in charge of you. But be proactive, right? So focus on your relationship with your manager. Their perception of you is really important. So always communicate your goals and your progress and what you're trying to do. And during the last job I was at with the startup, I was so focused on getting feedback. I was always incessantly like, is there anything I could do better? is there any feedback you have? Blah, blah, blah. And they'd always be like, no. And I also should have been like asking specific questions too. That's like the best way to get feedback if you've heard of that phrase before. But instead, I think you all, when you all go and work, this is years down the line, but when you all have a manager, right? Ask them, what are you doing well? Just go into your one-on-ones when you have them and be like, what am I doing well? What should I keep doing? Because then that forces them to think about all the great things that you've done. And that literally just creates this perception that's positive, right? Versus being like, what have I done poorly? Because then they're going to think about all the bad things you've done, right? And then vocalize it and manifest it and put this negative energy out there, right? So these are the things that I think are lessons that I want you to take away from my own experience and learn from what I've done. But really, like, how you carry yourself matters. I want you all to know that, like, how you communicate with people, how you treat people, how you talk to people, that is what's going to matter at the end of the day, right? Not what grade you got, right? Not what accomplishment you did, not what product you pushed out. Maybe it will matter if you, like, push out the next google.com, right?
No.
But really, like, at the end of the day, what matters is how you make people feel and how you carry yourself and how you talk to people, how you treat people, and just being kind, right? So let that be the end of my TED Talk.
Whoa!
Thank you all for listening. And we have another one for you. I know we're kind of late. Sorry, no questions today.
That's funny.
But okay, let me go to this talk.
That's so
Oh my gosh, they're probably like, what is taking so long?
sorry, Michael.
Okay, I really am scared to move this around. But maybe I'll move it around later. Okay. Are you all ready?
Yep.
Hi, Michael. Sorry we're a little late.
No worries.
I don't want to touch the computer because the cord is finicky, but at the end I'll like rotate it so you can actually see people, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Are you sure that's okay? Okay, I hope that's okay because I know it's silly to talk to like an empty board. But yes, so everyone, this is Michael. Michael's actually my manager on the team that I work at Google. Yeah, whoa. So I'm going to let him talk about the work that we do on our team and give you more insight into his role at Google. So I will make this a little bigger, I think. Or actually, I think that's as big as it gets. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll turn up the volume. Okay, go ahead and take it away.
Can I ask you a favor? Can
Yes.
you poke me when we get to 15 minutes? I've not done this. I have no idea how long it
Yes,
is.
I will give you a heads up timing-wise.
Cool. All right, folks. Jessica introduced me. I'm Mike Eaton. My role is a team lead manager, which is kind of an interesting role to think of inside of Google. But to start off, just a little bit about me personally.